If you open that door, you might lose your job or your life. The warning still echoes in Sophia Bennett's mind as her fingers hover over the sleek black key card, the number printed on it not matching any room she has ever cleaned before. The hallway is silent, wrapped in a kind of luxury that feels too expensive to breathe in, the soft carpet swallowing every step, the golden wall lights casting a warm glow that makes everything look like a dream she does not belong in. She glances down at her uniform, slightly wrinkled from a double shift, her shoes aching from 10 straight hours on her feet. This was supposed to be simple. One last room before she could finally go home. But the system had glitched, the supervisor had rushed her, and now she is standing in front of a door that does not feel like it should ever be opened by someone like her. Still, exhaustion wins over instinct. She swipes the card. The light turns green. The door clicks open. The room inside is not just a room. It is a private suite that looks more like a penthouse, with floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the dark ocean beyond, waves crashing softly under the moonlight. The scent of expensive cologne lingers in the air, mixed with something deeper, something masculine and calm. Sophia hesitates for only a second before stepping inside, her breath catching as she takes in the untouched bed, the polished marble, the quiet stillness. She tells herself she will just sit down for a moment, just to rest her feet, just to close her eyes for a second. But the second turns into something longer. The world fades. And without realizing it, Sophia Bennett falls asleep in a room that was never meant for her. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. Somewhere far below, the ocean keeps moving, steady and unaware, while high above, the elevator doors slide open with a soft chime. A man steps out, his presence quiet but commanding, his tailored suit catching the dim light as he walks down the hallway with the ease of someone who owns every inch of this place. Daniel Cross does not need a key to enter this room. This resort is his. Every suite, every hallway, every whispered secret behind closed doors belongs to him. He reaches the door, pauses for the briefest moment, as if sensing something is different, something out of place. Then he pushes it open. Inside, the soft glow of the room reveals a figure on the bed. A woman, asleep, in his room. For a second, time seems to stop. His eyes narrow, scanning the scene, calculating, questioning, trying to understand how a stranger could have crossed into the one space he never allows anyone to enter. He should call security. He should demand answers. But instead, he steps closer, his gaze fixed on her face, peaceful and unaware, as if she has no idea whose world she has just stepped into. And in that quiet, dangerous moment, something shifts. Because this was not just a mistake. This was the beginning of something neither of them was prepared for. The silence stretches for a breath too long, thick and heavy, as Sophia sleeps unaware of the storm she has just walked into, her chest rising and falling softly against sheets that cost more than everything she owns combined. While Daniel Cross stands at the edge of the bed, his expression unreadable, his mind moving faster than his still body suggests, calculating, assessing, deciding. He notices the details first, not the intrusion but the truth hidden in plain sight. The faint crease of exhaustion beneath her eyes. The subtle tremble in her fingers even in sleep. The uniform. Housekeeping. Not a threat. Not a thief. Just someone who should never have been allowed into this room. His jaw tightens slightly as he glances toward the door, already piecing together the failure that must have happened somewhere in his perfectly managed system. This does not happen here. Not in his resort. Not under his watch. And yet she is here. For a brief second, instinct tells him to call security, to have her escorted out, to demand answers from management before the sun even rises. That is what the man he used to be would have done without hesitation. Efficient. Cold. Unquestioning. But something holds him back. Maybe it is the way she clutches the edge of the blanket like she is holding onto the last bit of safety she has left. Maybe it is the quiet in the room, the rare stillness that he almost never allows himself to feel. Or maybe it is something else entirely, something he does not name. A soft sound breaks the moment. Sophia shifts slightly, her brow tightening as if she senses a presence before her eyes slowly begin to open. The confusion hits first, clouding her vision as she blinks against the dim light, trying to remember where she is, how she got here, why the air smells different, richer, unfamiliar. Then she sees him, a man standing at the foot of the bed, tall, composed, watching her with an intensity that instantly pulls her fully awake. She freezes. Her heart slams against her ribs as reality crashes in all at once. This is not her room. This is not any room she was supposed to be in. And the man in front of her does not look like someone who makes mistakes lightly. She sits up too quickly, the sheets slipping as panic floods her voice. I am so sorry. I did not mean to. I thought this room was assigned to me. The system gave me the card. I was just resting for a minute. I swear I was not trying to take anything. Her words tumble over each other, rushed and desperate, her hands instinctively pulling back, as if creating distance might somehow undo what has already happened. Daniel does not respond immediately. He studies her instead, letting the silence stretch just enough to make her nerves unravel further, his gaze sharp but not cruel, controlled but curious. When he finally speaks, his voice is low, steady, and carries the kind of authority that does not need to be raised to be felt. You are not a guest. His eyes flick briefly to her uniform, and back to her face. Housekeeping. Sophia nods quickly. Yes, sir. I mean, yes, I work here. I was assigned to clean the upper-level suites, and the card just worked. I did not realize this was a private suite. I would never have come in if I knew. Her voice cracks slightly at the end, the weight of what this could mean pressing down on her chest, the fear of losing the only job she has left tightening around her throat. Daniel takes a slow breath, absorbing every word, every detail, measuring the truth in her tone, and he finds no deception there, only exhaustion and fear. He steps closer, not threatening, but close enough that she feels the shift in the air between them, the quiet power in his presence. I believe you, he says simply, and the words land in a way she does not expect, cutting through her panic just enough to make her pause. But then his expression hardens slightly, not in anger, but in decision. This room is not on any standard assignment list, which means someone made a mistake or someone ignored protocol. Either way, it should not have happened. His gaze holds hers. And now we have a problem. Sophia swallows hard, her voice barely above a whisper. I will leave right now. I will not say anything to anyone. Please, just do not report me. I need this job. You do not understand. I cannot lose it. Not now, not when everything else is already falling apart. The desperation in her voice is raw, unfiltered, and for a moment it pulls something unexpected in him, something he has spent years burying beneath control and structure. Daniel exhales slowly, his decision forming not from logic alone, but from something far more dangerous. He shakes his head once. No, you are not leaving. Not yet. The words hang in the air, heavy with implication, and Sophia stares at him, confusion replacing fear for a split second. What do you mean, not yet? Daniel meets her gaze fully now, the weight of who he is beginning to surface in the quiet authority of his tone. It means we are going to handle this differently, because if this gets out, it will not just cost you your job, it will expose a failure inside my resort, and I do not tolerate failures. His pause is deliberate, but I also do not punish the wrong person for them. He takes another step back, giving her space again, but the tension remains, sharp and undeniable. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to stay here for now, and you are going to listen very carefully, because from this moment on, this situation does not exist to anyone but us. And Sophia realizes in that instant that the mistake she thought would end her life might have just pulled her into something far more complicated, far more dangerous, and far more impossible. To walk away from the air in the room changes the moment his words settle, heavy and controlled, wrapping around Sophia like something she cannot quite escape. And for a second, she just sits there on the edge of the bed, staring at him, trying to understand how a mistake that should have ended with her being escorted out has somehow turned into this quiet, unsettling negotiation, her pulse still racing, but no longer from pure fear, now mixed with something else, something uncertain and unfamiliar, because the man in front of her is not reacting the way anyone else would have. Not the way her supervisor would have, not the way any guest she has ever encountered would have, and that difference alone makes him more dangerous than anger ever could be. She swallows slowly, her voice hesitant but steady enough to hold. I do not understand what you want me to do. Her fingers grip the edge of the blanket, grounding herself in something real as she waits, every second stretching longer than it should. Daniel watches her carefully, as if weighing not just her words but the way she holds herself, the tension in her shoulders, the honesty in her eyes. And when he speaks again, his tone is quieter now, But no less firm. I want you to stay exactly where you are for the next few minutes. No sudden movements, no leaving this room until I say so. The instruction lands like a command, but not a threat. And that distinction is what makes her hesitate instead of run. He turns slightly, reaching into the inside pocket of his jacket, pulling out his phone. And for a brief moment Sophia considers the possibility that this is it, that he is about to call security after all, that this entire calm conversation has just been a delay before consequences arrive, and her stomach tightens, her breath catching as she braces herself for the sound of her life unraveling. But when he lifts the phone to his ear, his voice is controlled, almost casual, as if this is just another late-night issue to be handled with precision. I need you to check the key card logs for the upper-level suites tonight. There was an unauthorized access granted to a restricted room. I want to know exactly how that happened, and I want it traced without alerting the rest of the staff. His gaze flicks towards Sophia for a fraction of a second before returning to the invisible point ahead of him. Yes, quietly handle it. Daniel ends the call before any questions can follow, sliding the phone back into his pocket with the same composed ease he carries in everything he does, and only then does he fully face her again. The silence that follows is different now, less sharp but no less intense, filled with the weight of decisions already made. Sophia exhales slowly, not realizing she had been holding her breath the entire time, her mind racing to keep up with what just happened, because he did not call security, he did not report her, he did not even raise his voice. Instead, he treated this like a problem to be solved, not a mistake to be punished, and that confuses her more than anything else. Why, she asks softly, the words slipping out before she can stop it. Why are you helping me? The question hangs between them, fragile but direct, and for the first time since he walked into the room, something shifts in Daniel's expression, not fully visible, not something she can name, but enough to make his next words feel different. I am not helping you, he says, his voice steady. I am fixing a mistake. That is all. The answer is simple, almost cold, but there is something underneath it that does not quite match the surface, something unspoken that lingers in the space between them. Sophia nods slowly, though she is not entirely convinced, her instincts telling her that people like him do not make decisions without reason, that nothing in this world of polished marble and quiet luxury happens without purpose. And yet here she is, still sitting on a bed she should never have touched, still being allowed to stay in a situation that makes no sense. Daniel steps toward the window, his silhouette framed against the dark ocean outside, the distant sound of waves filling the silence as he looks out, his posture relaxed, but his mind clearly working through something deeper than he has revealed. You said you were assigned to this floor, he says without turning around. Who gave you the cards? Sophia hesitates for a moment, replaying the end of her shift in her mind, the rushed instructions, the stack of rooms. She barely had time to process. It was my supervisor, Mark Reynolds, she answers finally. He said there was a last-minute change that I needed to cover the upper level, because someone called out sick. I did not question it. I just took the card and came up here. Daniel nods once, almost to himself, as if confirming a piece of a puzzle he already suspected, and when he turns back to her, there is a sharper focus in his eyes now, a clearer direction forming in his next words. Then this is not just a mistake. His gaze locks onto hers. Someone wanted you to have access to this room, and in that moment, the weight of the situation shifts completely, because what felt like an accident begins to take on a different shape, something intentional, something far more complicated than a simple error, and Sophia feels a chill run down her spine as the realization settles in. Because if this was not a mistake, then she was never supposed to just clean this room. She was meant to be here. The words settle between them like a quiet storm, heavy with implication, and Sophia feels the ground beneath her certainty begin to shift in a way she cannot control, her fingers tightening slightly against the fabric of the blanket as her mind races to keep up with what he just said, because the idea that someone wanted her here does not make sense, not in her world, not in a life where she has always been invisible, overlooked, just another employee moving silently through hallways that were never meant for her. And yet the way Daniel says it, calm and certain, makes it impossible to dismiss. That is not possible, she says quickly, almost too quickly, her voice carrying a fragile edge of denial. I'm just housekeeping. No one would have a reason to send me here. There is nothing special about me. The last sentence comes out softer than she intends, more truth than defense. And for a brief moment the room feels smaller, as if her own words have revealed more than she wanted him to see. Daniel studies her in silence, his expression unreadable, but his attention precise, taking in not just what she says, but how she says it, the quiet resignation behind her tone, the kind that comes from years of being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. That may be exactly why he replies, his voice measured, because someone who is not supposed to be noticed is the easiest person to move through a place like this without raising suspicion. He steps away from the window, the soft light catching the sharp lines of his face as he moves closer again, not invading her space, but closing the distance enough that his presence feels intentional. Tell me everything about tonight, he continues, his tone shifting slightly, less commanding now, more investigative from the moment your shift started. Do not leave anything out, even the parts that seem unimportant. Sophia hesitates, her thoughts still tangled, but something in his voice makes it clear that this is no longer just about her mistake, and slowly she nods, pulling herself together as she begins to retrace her steps, her words careful at first, then gaining clarity as memory fills in. The gaps. My shift started at 3 in the afternoon, she says, her gaze drifting slightly as she reconstructs the timeline. It was busy because we had a full booking weekend. I was assigned to the standard floors at first, rooms on levels 3 through 6. Nothing unusual. She pauses, thinking, her brow tightening. Then around 8, my supervisor, Mark, called me into the service hallway. He seemed rushed more than usual. He handed me a new key card and said I needed to cover the upper level because someone called out sick. I asked if I needed special clearance, and he said it was already handled, that I just needed to finish quickly before the night shift changed. Daniel listens without interruption, his focus unwavering, his mind already connecting details, mapping possibilities against what he knows about his own operation, and something about this does not sit right. Go on, he says quietly. Sophia nods again. I came up here around 9. The hallway was empty, which is normal for that level. I checked the list on the device, but the room number did not match anything I had cleaned before. I thought maybe it was a last-minute addition, so I tried the card, and it worked. That is when I went inside. Her voice lowers slightly, the memory of that moment now carrying a different weight. I was so tired. I had not taken a break all evening. I just sat down for a second, and then I must have fallen asleep. She looks back at him, her eyes searching his face as if hoping he can make sense of it in a way she cannot. That is everything, I swear. I did not take anything. I did not touch anything. I just slept. The silence that follows is no longer uncertain but deliberate, filled with the quiet hum of the ocean outside and the steady rhythm of two people caught in a situation neither of them expected. And Daniel finally exhales slowly, his conclusion forming with quiet certainty. The system would not assign this room to standard housekeeping, he says. More to himself than to her, this level requires executive clearance and direct approval from management, which means the card you were given was manually authorized. He meets her gaze again, his voice firmer. Now someone with access changed your assignment intentionally. Sophia feels a chill run through her, sharper than before, her earlier denial fading under the weight of his logic. But why, she asks, her voice barely steady. Why would anyone do that? Daniel does not answer immediately, because the truth is he does not have that answer yet. But he knows one thing with certainty: this was not random. He studies her for a moment longer, then shakes his head slightly. That is what we are going to find out. And until we do, you are not just an employee who made a mistake anymore. His words land slowly, deliberately. You are part of something bigger, whether you want to be or not. Sophia feels her breath catch again, not from panic this time, but from the realization that the life she walked into this building with only hours ago is already beginning to slip out of her control, replaced by something far more complicated, far more dangerous. And standing in front of her is the only person who seems to understand just how deep this might go. The realization lingers in the air long after Daniel's words fade, wrapping around Sophia like a quiet pressure she cannot shake. And for the first time since she woke up in this room, the fear shifts into something deeper, something colder, because this is no longer just about losing her job. It is about being pulled into something she does not understand and cannot control, and that thought alone makes her chest tighten as she looks at him, searching for something steady in the middle of all this uncertainty. So what happens now, she asks, her voice softer but steadier than before, as if she is forcing herself to stay grounded even while everything around her begins to tilt. Daniel does not answer immediately, his gaze drifting briefly toward the door as if measuring time itself. Then back to her, his expression composed, but decisive. We control what we can, he says finally. And right now, that means no one knows you are here, and no one needs to know. He walks past her toward the small control panel near the wall, pressing a button that dims the lights slightly, the room shifting into a softer glow that feels more private, more contained, as if the outside world has been deliberately shut out. You will stay in this room until I understand exactly who authorized that card and why, he continues, his tone calm, but leaving no room for argument. Sophia blinks, the weight of that instruction settling in. Stay here, she repeats quietly. You mean I cannot go back to my shift if I disappear? They will notice. Daniel shakes his head. Once they will not, he replies. I will handle that. His confidence is not loud, but absolute, the kind that makes it clear he is used to bending situations to his will, without resistance, and that only adds to the strange reality she finds herself in, because nothing about this feels normal, not the silence, not the secrecy, not the way he is taking control of a problem that should have been handled with a simple report and dismissal. He reaches for a glass on the side table, pouring water with steady hands before setting it within her reach. Drink, he says. You look like you have not had a break in hours. Sophia hesitates, then takes the glass, her fingers brushing the cool surface as she realizes just how dry her throat feels, the simple act of drinking grounding her in a way nothing else has since she woke up. Thank you, she murmurs, the words almost automatic, but sincere. Daniel watches her for a moment, then turns slightly away again, giving her space without fully leaving her alone, his presence still anchoring the room. You said you have been working since 3 in the afternoon, he says, his tone more neutral. Now how many hours do they usually schedule you? Sophia lets out a small breath, the question catching her off guard because it feels almost ordinary compared to everything else. Usually 8, she answers, but lately it has been more like 10 or 11. We are short-staffed, and they keep asking us to cover extra floors. She lowers the glass, her eyes dropping briefly. I cannot really say no. Daniel's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly at that, not in anger directed at her, but at something else entirely, something structural, something he clearly does not like but has not yet addressed. You should not be working beyond your assigned hours without proper compensation, he says, more to himself than to her. That will be corrected. The certainty in his voice makes her look up again, surprised, because no one has ever said something like that to her before. Not like it matters, not like it can actually change anything. It is fine, she replies quickly. I need the hours, the money helps. She stops herself before saying more, but the implication hangs there anyway, heavy and unspoken. Daniel studies her again, more carefully this time, as if beginning to see the outline of a life beyond this room, beyond this moment, a life shaped by necessity rather than choice, and for reasons he does not fully understand yet. That realization settles somewhere deeper than he expects. A soft vibration breaks the quiet as his phone buzzes in his pocket, and this time when he pulls it out, his expression shifts slightly as he reads the message, not alarmed but focused. They found something, he says after a moment, his voice low. The key card was authorized manually from a management terminal less than 30 minutes before it was given to you. Sophia feels her pulse spike again, the timeline snapping into place in a way that makes everything feel sharper, more deliberate. 30 minutes, she repeats. That means it was planned. Daniel nods once. Yes. And that means whoever did it knew exactly where I would be tonight. The words land with a quiet weight that changes everything, because now this is not just about her being sent into the wrong room. It is about someone targeting him through her, using her as a piece in something she never agreed to be part of. Sophia sets the glass down slowly, her hands no longer steady. So what does that make me? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looks at her, his gaze unwavering, his answer simple but impossible to ignore. It makes you important to someone, and until we know who that someone is, you are not leaving my sight. The room falls silent again, but this time it is not just tension that fills it. It is the beginning of something neither of them can fully see yet, a connection formed not by choice but by circumstance, and the undeniable truth that whatever brought her into this room was far from over. The words settle heavily between them, reshaping the room into something no longer safe or simple, and Sophia feels the shift in her chest as the reality of what he just said begins to take hold. Because being important to someone she cannot see or understand is far more frightening than being invisible, and for a moment she does not know where to place her hands or her thoughts. everything inside her pulling in opposite directions. Part of her wanting to leave, to run, to pretend none of this ever happened, and another part realizing she no longer has that choice. Daniel watches her carefully, noticing the way her shoulders tense, the way her breathing changes, and he recognizes the moment she crosses from confusion into awareness, the point where this situation becomes real in a way that cannot be undone. "You are safe here," he says, his voice steady, not soft but grounded, as if stating a fact rather than offering comfort. "No one will come into this room without my permission." Sophia looks at him, searching his face again, trying to understand how someone she met less than an hour ago can speak with such certainty, such control over a place this large, this complex. And something about that certainty begins to settle her, not completely, but enough to keep her from falling apart. "You keep saying that," she replies quietly. "Your room, your permission, your resort. What exactly do you mean?" Her question is careful, but direct, and for the first time, there is no panic in it, only curiosity edged with caution. Daniel does not answer immediately, and in that pause, something unspoken passes between them, something that feels like a line about to be crossed. He studies her for a moment longer, as if deciding whether or not to reveal something that cannot be taken back once it is said, and then he exhales slowly, his decision made. "It means exactly what it sounds like," he says calmly. "This resort belongs to me. Every floor, every system, every person who works here answers to my structure." Sophia blinks, the words taking a second to fully register, and when they do, the effect is immediate, her posture straightening slightly, her eyes widening with a mix of disbelief and realization. "You own this place," she says, her voice barely above a whisper, not because she doubts it, but because saying it out loud makes it real. Daniel nods once, not with pride, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. "Yes." Sophia looks around the room again, seeing it differently now, not just as a space that was too luxurious for her, but as something directly connected to him. Every detail, every polished surface, every silent system tied back to the man standing in front of her, and suddenly the way he speaks, the way he moves, the way he takes control of every situation makes sense in a way it did not before. "I thought you were just a guest," she admits softly, almost to herself. Daniel allows the faintest hint of a reaction to pass through his expression, something close to a restrained smile, but it fades as quickly as it appears. "That is usually how I prefer it," he replies. "People behave differently when they think they are being watched." Sophia lets out a quiet breath, the tension in her chest shifting again, this time into something more complex, because the man she thought she had to fear as a stranger is now something else entirely, someone with the power to protect her or destroy her situation with a single decision, and that realization forces her to be more careful, more aware of every word she says next. "So you are keeping me here," she says slowly, "because someone used me to get to you." Daniel meets her gaze without hesitation. "Yes, and until I understand how and why, you are safer here than anywhere else in this building." The certainty in his voice is no longer just confidence, it is strategy, and Sophia can feel it, the way he is already several steps ahead, already thinking through possibilities she cannot even see yet. A soft knock suddenly breaks the stillness, sharp but controlled, and Sophia's entire body tenses instantly, her eyes snapping toward the door as her heart jumps back into her throat. Daniel does not react with surprise, only with quiet readiness, his gaze shifting toward the entrance as if he has been expecting this moment. "Stay where you are," he says calmly, his voice low but firm. "Do not speak unless I tell you to." Sophia nods quickly, her hands tightening again as she watches him move toward the door, every step measured, every movement deliberate, and when he reaches it, he pauses for just a second before opening it. A man in a dark suit stands on the other side, his posture straight, his expression professional, but there is tension in his eyes that he cannot completely hide. "Sir," he says quietly, "we have confirmed the access point. It came from the executive control terminal on level 10. Daniel's expression does not change, but something in his eyes sharpens. "Level 10, he repeats. "That terminal requires biometric authorization." The man nods. "Yes, sir," which means whoever did this has clearance equal to yours. The words hang in the air like a warning, and for the first time since this began, the situation shifts into something even more dangerous, something that reaches beyond a simple internal error into the possibility of betrayal from within. And as Daniel closes the door slowly behind him, turning back towards Sophia, There is no doubt left in his mind that this is no longer just a problem to solve. It is a threat that has already made its first move, and she is standing right in the center of it. The room feels different after the door closes, heavier, quieter, as if the truth that just entered with those words refuses to leave, and Sophia can feel it pressing against her chest, tightening every breath as she watches Daniel turn back toward her, his expression no longer just controlled, but sharpened by something deeper, something colder, something that carries the weight of betrayal. Clearance equal to yours, she repeats slowly, her voice unsteady despite her effort to stay calm. That means whoever did this is not just an employee. Daniel nods once, his gaze distant for a fraction of a second as his mind moves through possibilities, names, positions, access levels, each one narrowing into a smaller and more dangerous circle. It means someone inside my executive structure authorized access to a restricted suite using your identity as a cover, he replies quietly, and that is not a coincidence. Sophia swallows hard, the realization settling deeper now, more personal, more unsettling. They used me, she says. The words, almost a whisper. Daniel meets her eyes again. Yes, he says simply, they used you, because you would not question it, because you would follow instructions, because no one would suspect you. The honesty in his voice is not cruel, but it is direct, and it lands with a weight that makes her look away for a moment, her thoughts racing through every detail of her life that suddenly feels exposed, predictable, easy to manipulate. I do not even know anyone here like that, she says quietly. I barely talk to anyone outside my shift. I just work and go home. Daniel studies her again, more carefully now, as if trying to understand not just her situation, but her patterns, her routines, the spaces she moves through without noticing, and how easily someone could have mapped that out. That may be exactly why you were chosen, he replies, because you are consistent, predictable, you do not create problems. That makes you useful. The word hangs there for a second, and Sophia feels it settle in her chest in a way she cannot ignore, because for the first time she is not invisible, she is not overlooked, she is something else entirely, something selected, something placed. A soft sound from the ocean outside fills the silence, the waves steady and indifferent, a reminder that the world continues even when everything inside this room has shifted beyond recognition. Daniel walks past her again, slower this time, his steps measured as he moves toward the desk near the window, his hand resting briefly against the polished surface as he thinks. Whoever authorized that access knew my schedule, he says quietly, more to himself than to her. They knew I would be here tonight, they knew this room would be occupied, and they knew exactly how to get someone inside without triggering suspicion. Sophia looks at him, her voice cautious but urgent. So what were they trying to do, break and steal something? Daniel shakes his head slightly. If that was the goal, they would not need you, he replies. They would use someone, train someone. Prepared. This was something else. His eyes narrow slightly, something that required a presence that appeared accidental, something that could not be traced back immediately to intent. The implication settles slowly, and Sophia feels a chill run through her again. You mean they wanted you to find me? She asks. Daniel does not answer right away, but the silence itself is enough, and when he finally speaks, his voice is lower now, more focused. Yes, he says, they wanted me to walk into this room and see you. The words shift everything again, because now the situation is no longer just about access or security. It is about perception, about creating a moment that was meant to unfold exactly the way it did. And Sophia feels the weight of that realization press deeper into her chest, because it means this was never random, not even for a second. But why, she asks again, her voice barely steady. What could that possibly accomplish? Daniel turns to face her fully now, his gaze intense but controlled. That depends on what happens next, he says quietly, because if I had reacted differently, if I had called security, if I had reported you, this situation would already be public, and you would be the one blamed. The words hit hard, and Sophia feels her stomach drop as she realizes how easily her life could have been destroyed in a matter of minutes. How close she came to something she would not have been able to escape. But you did not do that, she says, her voice softer now, more uncertain. Daniel holds her gaze for a moment, something unreadable passing through his expression before it settles back into calm control. No, he says, because I do not make decisions without understanding the full picture first. He pauses slightly, and because something about this did not feel right. The honesty in that answer lands differently, quieter, more personal than anything he has said so far. And for a brief moment the tension in the room shifts, not disappearing, but changing into something more complex, something that is no longer just about danger, but about the strange connection forming in the middle of it. A soft vibration breaks the moment again as Daniel's phone lights up once more, and when he reads the message this time, his expression tightens just slightly, enough for Sophia to notice. What is it, she asks. Daniel looks up, his voice calm, but edged with something sharper. They found the access log identity. He says slowly, the authorization was signed under my name. The words land like a final piece of a puzzle snapping into place, and for a second, the room feels completely still, because now there is no doubt left, no room for misinterpretation. Whoever did this did not just have access. They wanted it to look like he did it himself. And as Sophia stares at him, the full weight of what she has been pulled into finally becomes impossible to ignore, because this is no longer just a mistake or even a setup. This is something far more dangerous, something designed to turn trust into suspicion, and she is standing right in the middle of it with the one person who has the most to lose. The silence after his words does not feel empty anymore. It feels charged, like something invisible has shifted direction and is now moving toward them instead of away. And Sophia can feel it in the way her chest tightens, in the way her thoughts no longer scatter but begin to focus. Because this is no longer just about what happened. It is about what is going to happen next, and for the first time, she realizes she cannot just stand still and wait for it to unfold. So what do we do, she asks, her voice quieter now but steadier, no longer just reacting, but searching for direction. Daniel looks at her for a long moment, measuring something beyond her words, as if deciding whether she is ready to hear what comes next, and then he nods slightly. His decision made. We stop reacting, he says calmly. We start moving ahead of them. He steps toward the desk again, pulling out a thin tablet from a hidden drawer, the screen lighting up with a soft glow as he taps into the internal system, his movements precise, practiced, controlled. If someone inside my executive structure is willing to use my identity, then they are not just testing access, he continues, they are testing response. They want to see how I react under pressure, whether I act publicly or quietly, whether I protect the system or expose it. Sophia watches him closely, the way he speaks making the situation feel larger, more strategic than she had imagined. So they are watching you, she says. Daniel nods without looking up. Yes. And now they are watching you too. The words send a subtle chill through her. But this time she does not pull back from it. She leans into the reality of it, because there is no safety in denial anymore. Then we need to give them something to see, she says, surprising even herself with the steadiness in her tone. And that is the moment Daniel finally looks up at her again, something new flickering in his expression, something closer to recognition. Exactly, he replies quietly, but it has to be controlled. He sets the tablet down and steps closer, his focus fully on her now. You cannot go back to your normal routine tonight. That would expose you too quickly. Instead, you stay here, and we create a version of events that makes sense to anyone watching. Sophia nods slowly, following his logic, even as her heart continues to beat faster. So what does that version look like, she asks. Daniel pauses for a second, then answers with quiet certainty. It looks like a mistake, he says, a simple system error, a housekeeping employee entering the wrong room and being escorted out without incident, nothing more. Sophia exhales softly, that version sounding almost comforting in its simplicity. But that is not what happened, she says. Daniel's gaze sharpens slightly. I know, he replies, but it is what they need to believe for now. He takes a step back, creating a small distance between them again, as if resetting the space into something more structured than tomorrow. You return to work as usual, he continues. You do not change your behavior, you do not act differently, you do not speak about this to anyone. Sophia hesitates at that, her voice cautious. And what about you? Daniel's expression settles back into its calm control. I will do the same, he says, because if they are watching, then the most dangerous thing we can do is let them know we are aware. The logic is clear, sharp, undeniable. And Sophia feels something inside her shift again, not fear this time, but focus, a quiet determination beginning to form in the space where confusion used to be. A soft notification sound breaks the moment as the tablet lights up again, and Daniel glances down, his expression tightening just slightly as he reads the update. They just accessed the internal surveillance logs, he says quietly. Sophia feels her pulse spike again. What does that mean? It means whoever is behind this is checking to see what I have already seen, he replies, which means they expect a reaction. He looks back at her, his voice lowering slightly. Then we give them one. The room seems to hold its breath as he steps closer again, his presence steady, deliberate, as if every movement is now part of something larger than either of them. You are going to leave this room in exactly 5 minutes, he says calmly. You will walk out like nothing unusual happened. You will return to the service elevator and finish your shift as if this room was never occupied. Sophia's eyes widen slightly. That is your reaction? She asks. Daniel nods once. Yes, because if they believe I did not notice anything, they will make their next move, and that is when we find out who this really is. The plan settles into place between them, precise and controlled. And for the first time since this began, Sophia feels like she is no longer just a piece being moved. She is part of the game itself. And as the quiet hum of the ocean continues outside, she realizes that whatever happens next will not be an accident. It will be a choice, one that binds her path to his in a way neither of them can undo. 5 minutes feels shorter than it should, slipping through Sophia's fingers like something she cannot hold on to. And by the time Daniel steps back and gives a single nod, the moment has already arrived, the point where thought turns into action, where fear has no more space to hide behind hesitation. Go, he says quietly, his voice steady, controlled, leaving no room for doubt. Sophia inhales slowly, forcing her body to move despite the weight pressing against her chest, and as she stands from the bed, her legs feel slightly unsteady, not from exhaustion this time, but from the awareness that every step she takes from this point forward is no longer just hers. She smooths the front of her uniform instinctively, grounding herself in the familiar motion, then turns toward the door, her hand pausing on the handle for just a fraction of a second before. She looks back at him. Their eyes meet, and in that brief moment, something unspoken passes between them, not comfort, not reassurance, but a shared understanding that neither of them can afford to make a mistake now. Then she opens the door and steps out. The hallway greets her with the same quiet luxury as before, but it no longer feels distant or unreal. It feels sharp, aware, as if every light, every shadow could be watching her, and she forces herself to walk at a normal pace. Not too fast, not too slow, her footsteps steady against the soft carpet as she moves toward the service elevator. Her heart pounds in her ears, but her face remains composed, her expression neutral, the way she has trained herself to be after long shifts when guests pass by without ever really seeing her. She reaches the elevator and presses the button, the seconds stretching as she waits, her mind replaying everything that just happened, every word, every look, every shift in tone, until the doors finally slide open with a soft sound. Inside, the familiar metal walls feel almost comforting, enclosed, predictable, and as the doors close behind her, she exhales for the first time since leaving the room, her shoulders dropping slightly as the tension releases just enough to let her breathe. The elevator descends slowly, floor by floor, and with each level, the world she understands begins to return, the rhythm of work, the structure of routine, the illusion of normalcy settling back into place. When the doors open again, the service hallway is exactly as she left it, bright, functional, filled with the quiet movement of late-night staff finishing their shifts, carts rolling, doors opening and closing, voices low and routine. No one looks at her twice. No one stops her. It is as if nothing has happened at all. Sophia steps out, her movements natural now, practiced, blending back into the flow of the space she belongs to, and she reaches for her cart, picking up the next set of supplies with steady hands, continuing her work as if the past hour never existed. But inside, everything has changed. Across the building, high above the floor she now walks through, Daniel stands in the same room, his gaze fixed on the closed door long after she is gone, his mind already moving ahead, tracking timelines, analyzing responses, anticipating the next move from someone who has just revealed themselves without stepping into the light. His phone vibrates again, and this time the message is immediate, precise. Subject has exited the suite. Movement consistent with routine. No deviation. He reads it once, then locks the screen, his expression unreadable, but his eyes sharper than before. They are watching exactly as expected. He steps toward the window, looking out over the dark ocean, the waves steady and endless, and for a moment, the calm surface of everything hides the complexity underneath. Then another message arrives, shorter this time, more urgent. Secondary access detected. Different terminal. Same authorization level. Daniel's jaw tightens slightly, not in surprise, but in confirmation. They are not finished. Not even close. Back on the lower floors, Sophia continues moving from room to room, her actions precise, controlled, but her awareness heightened in a way she cannot turn off. Every sound sharper, every movement around her more noticeable, as if she is seeing the world through a different lens now, one where nothing is as simple as it appears. She passes by a mirror in the hallway and catches a glimpse of herself, the same uniform, the same tired expression, the same person she was before this night began, and yet she knows that is no longer true. Because somewhere above her, someone is watching. And somewhere even closer, someone is waiting to make their next move. And for reasons she still does not fully understand, she is no longer just part of the background. She is part of the plan. Morning does not arrive gently. It cuts through the resort with a sharp brightness that exposes everything too clearly. And by the time Sophia steps into the main lobby level for the first time that day, the world no longer feels like something she can move through unnoticed. It feels staged, observed, like every polished surface reflects more than just light. The lobby is alive with early guests, soft conversations, rolling suitcases, the quiet elegance of wealth moving without effort. And for a moment she hesitates at the edge of it, her uniform marking her place in a world that suddenly feels much larger than it did yesterday. Then she forces herself forward, blending into motion, carrying fresh linens toward the elevators, her expression neutral, her posture steady, exactly as Daniel instructed. Do not change. Do not react. But something is already wrong. She feels it before she sees it. The subtle shift in how people look at her, not openly, not enough to draw attention, but enough to make her pulse quicken. The way one of the front desk staff glances at her, and then quickly looks away. The way two supervisors pause their conversation as she walks past, their voices lowering just slightly. It is small, almost nothing, but it is different. Upstairs, Daniel stands in a glass-enclosed office overlooking the central courtyard, his presence invisible to the guests below but absolute to everyone who works within the structure of the resort. And in front of him, a digital screen displays internal movement logs in real time, every access point, every entry, every system request mapped with precision. They moved early, his assistant says quietly from behind him, her voice controlled, but tense. The second access point from last night triggered an internal review flag this morning. Daniel does not turn, his gaze fixed on the data, his mind already aligning patterns they wanted it found. He replies calmly, they are accelerating. His assistant hesitates, then speaks again, there is more. A formal report has been filed against one of the housekeeping staff. Daniel's eyes narrow slightly. Which one? A brief pause answers him before the words are spoken. Sophia Bennett. The name lands with quiet weight. Not surprising, not unexpected, but confirming everything he already knew would happen next. Because this was never just about access. It was about consequence, about pushing pressure onto the one variable that could not defend itself. What is the accusation? He asks. His assistant exhales softly. Unauthorized entry into a restricted suite, suspicion of attempted theft, and breach of internal protocol. The words are clean, official, designed to sound reasonable, designed to be believed. Daniel finally turns, his expression calm but colder now, more focused. Initiated by who? He asks. Another pause. The authorization signature is internal management level, but it is masked through a proxy identity. Daniel does not need more than that. He already understands the pattern. They are tightening the narrative. Back on the floor, Sophia reaches the service corridor just as her supervisor steps into her path, his expression tighter than usual, his tone no longer rushed but controlled. Deliberate. Sophia, we need to talk, he says, his voice low enough not to draw attention, but firm enough to leave no room for refusal. Her stomach drops instantly, the timing too precise to be coincidence. And for a second she considers pretending she does not know, pretending this is just another routine correction, but the weight in his eyes tells her otherwise. What is wrong? She asks, her voice steady despite the tension building inside her. Mark Reynolds glances around briefly, then gestures toward a small office off the hallway inside. Now Sophia follows, her steps measured, her breathing controlled, every instinct telling her this is the moment everything shifts again. And when the door closes behind them, the space feels smaller, tighter, the air heavier with something unspoken. Mark turns to face her, his expression hardening in a way she has never seen before. There was an incident last night, he says, his tone formal now. Detached, you accessed a restricted suite. Without authorization. Sophia feels her pulse spike. But she does not look away. She does not panic. She remembers Daniel's words. Do not react. Do not change. And she holds her ground. I was assigned to that floor, she replies calmly. You gave me the card. Mark's eyes flicker for a fraction of a second. Something quick, almost imperceptible, but enough for her to notice. And then it is gone, replaced by something colder. That is not what the system shows. He says the system shows that you accessed a private suite using unauthorized credentials. The accusation hangs in the air, sharp and controlled. And Sophia realizes in that moment that this is no longer about truth. It is about narrative, about who controls the story and who gets buried under it. I did not take anything, she says, her voice firm now, stronger than she expected. I did exactly what I was told. Mark studies her for a long moment, then steps slightly closer, his voice lowering even further. You should think very carefully about what you say next, he replies, because this is already being reviewed at a higher level, and if you push back, it will not end well for you. The threat is subtle, but clear, wrapped in professional language, but carrying something far more dangerous underneath. And for a brief second, the room feels like it is closing in on her, like the walls themselves are part of the pressure building around her. But then something inside her steadies, something she did not have before last night. Because she is not alone in this anymore. And somewhere above her, Daniel is already watching the same pattern unfold, already seeing the move for what it is, not an accusation, but an attack. And as the system continues to shift around them, both of them understand the same truth at the same time. This is no longer just a test. This is the beginning of a war. The silence inside the small office stretches until it feels unbearable, thick with tension and unspoken threats. And Sophia can feel her heartbeat steadying, not because the situation has improved, but because something inside her has shifted, something stronger than fear, something grounded in the simple truth that she did nothing wrong. And for the first time since this began, she does not look down or step back. She holds her position. Then I will say exactly what happened, she replies, her voice calm but firm. Meeting Mark Reynolds' gaze without hesitation. You gave me the key card. You told me to go to that floor if there is a problem. It is not mine. Mark's expression tightens, the controlled mask slipping just slightly as irritation flickers beneath the surface. Because this is not the reaction he expected, not from someone like her, not from someone who was supposed to fold under pressure, to apologize, to accept blame, quietly, and disappear. You are making this more difficult than it needs to be, he says, his tone lowering further. More dangerous now than before. All you have to do is acknowledge the mistake, cooperate with the report, and this can be handled internally. Sophia shakes her head once, slow and deliberate. No, she says, I am not going to admit to something I did not do. The words land clean, direct, and for a moment the room feels completely still, the balance of control shifting in a way neither of them can ignore. Mark studies her, his eyes narrowing slightly, recalculating, and when he speaks again, the professionalism returns, but it is colder now, more calculated. Then you leave me no choice, he says. I will have to escalate this to executive review. The implication is clear, and Sophia feels it, the weight of it pressing against her chest, but she does not move, does not break, because somewhere beyond this room, she knows someone else is already seeing the same pattern unfold. At that exact moment, several floors above, Daniel stands in front of a wall-sized display of internal systems, his gaze fixed on a live feed pulled from a restricted camera angle just outside the service office. The audio muted, but the body language clear, every movement, every shift in posture telling him exactly what is happening without a single word needing to be heard. They moved faster than expected, his assistant says quietly behind him. They filed the report before the morning shift rotation. Daniel does not respond immediately, his focus sharpening as he watches Sophia hold her ground, something in her stance confirming what he already suspected. She is not breaking, not folding into the narrative they prepared for her. Good, he says finally, his voice calm, but edged with something sharper. It means they are overconfident. He reaches forward, tapping into the system, pulling up the authorization chain behind the report, layers of access routing through proxies, masked identities, but not perfect, not flawless, because nothing created in urgency ever is. Trace every internal signature attached to that report, he orders quietly. I want a direct path, not a filtered one. His assistant nods immediately, already running meanwhile. Back inside the office, Mark steps toward the desk, pulling out a tablet, his movements controlled, official, as if formalizing the situation will force it into submission. I am documenting your refusal to cooperate, he says without looking at her. This will be included in the final report. Sophia watches him, her hands steady at her sides, her voice calm. Then document everything. She replies, document that you gave me the card, document that you sent me to that floor, document the exact time and the instructions you gave me. Mark pauses, just for a fraction of a second, but it is enough for her to see the crack, the hesitation he cannot fully hide, and in that moment, she knows she has said something that matters. You should be very careful, he says slowly, turning back toward her now. You do not understand what you are involving yourself in. Sophia meets his gaze without flinching. Maybe not, she replies, but I understand when I am being set up. The words hit harder than anything she has said so far, and this time, Mark does not hide the reaction completely, a flicker of something sharper passing through his expression before he reins it back in, the mask returning, but thinner now, less certain. Outside the office, footsteps approach, measured and purposeful, and before either of them can speak again, the door opens. Daniel Cross steps inside. The room shifts instantly, the air itself changing as his presence fills the space, quiet but absolute. His gaze moving first to Sophia, a brief check, a silent confirmation that she is still standing, then to Mark, his expression unreadable but commanding in a way that requires no introduction. I believe this conversation has gone far enough, Daniel says calmly, his voice steady but carrying a weight that changes everything in the room. And in that moment, the balance of power does not just shift, it breaks completely, because the man they tried to manipulate has just stepped directly into the center of their plan, and he is no longer watching from a distance. The moment Daniel Cross steps into the room, everything changes, not loudly, not with force, but with a quiet authority that presses down on every surface, every breath, every unspoken word, and Sophia feels it instantly. The shift so sharp it almost feels physical, like the air itself has realigned around him, steady, controlled, undeniable. Mark Reynolds straightens automatically, the confidence he carried just seconds ago tightening into something more careful, more restrained, his posture adjusting as if reminded of a hierarchy he cannot ignore. Mr. Cross, he says, his tone measured, but no longer dominant. We were just addressing a protocol violation. Daniel does not look at the tablet in Mark's hand, does not acknowledge the report, his attention fixed instead on the man himself, his gaze calm, but unyielding. No, he replies quietly, you were constructing a narrative. The words land with precision, not raised, not aggressive, but impossible to deflect. And for a brief second, silence fills the room again, heavier than before. Mark exhales slowly, attempting to recover control, his voice shifting into a more formal tone. There was an unauthorized entry into a restricted suite. He says the system logs confirm it, and I am following standard procedure. Daniel takes a single step forward. The movement small, but enough to reclaim the entire space. Standard procedure requires accurate reporting, he responds, and accurate reporting requires complete information. His gaze sharpens slightly. Tell me, Mark, did your report include the fact that you personally issued the key card to this employee? Mark's expression flickers, just for a moment, the smallest fracture in his composure, but it is there, visible, undeniable, and Sophia sees it clearly now, the truth pushing through the surface of control. I assigned her to cover an additional floor, he replies carefully. The rest appears to be a system error. Daniel tilts his head slightly, studying him with quiet intensity. A system error that required executive-level authorization, he says slowly, that originated from a terminal with biometric clearance equal to mine. The room falls completely silent, the weight of that statement removing any illusion left. And Mark does not respond immediately this time, because there is no clean answer left to give. Behind Daniel, his assistant steps into the doorway, holding a tablet, her presence unobtrusive but precise, and when she speaks, her voice is calm, but carries its own authority. We have completed the trace, she says. The authorization chain was masked, but not fully. It leads back to a secondary executive override registered under your credentials. Mr. Reynolds, the words land like a final verdict, and for the first time, Mark does not try to interrupt, does not try to redirect, because the structure he was hiding behind has just been dismantled piece by piece. That is not possible, he says finally, but the certainty is gone from his voice, replaced by something thinner, less stable. Daniel does not raise his voice, does not step closer, but his presence becomes even more focused, more precise. It is not only possible, he says quietly, it is documented. He pauses just long enough for the truth to settle, then the question becomes why. Sophia stands still, her breath steady but her awareness sharper than ever, watching the moment unfold not as a victim anymore, but as someone who understands exactly what is happening, the shift from accusation to exposure, from pressure to accountability. Mark's jaw tightens, his eyes moving briefly between Daniel and the assistant, calculating, searching for an exit that no longer exists. This is a misunderstanding, he says quickly. There must be a duplication of credentials or a system breach. Daniel's gaze does not waver. There is no breach, he replies, only intent. The word lands with finality, cutting through every remaining excuse. And for a moment, no one speaks, because the truth is no longer something that can be shaped. It is something that has already taken form. Daniel turns slightly, his attention shifting just enough to include Sophia, not as a subject of the conversation, but as part of its resolution. Miss Bennett followed the instructions she was given, he says calmly. She will not be included in any disciplinary action. His voice is steady, absolute. That is not a request, it is a decision. Sophia feels something settle inside her, not relief exactly, but clarity. The kind that comes when uncertainty finally breaks apart into something solid and real. Mark exhales slowly, the resistance draining from his posture as the situation closes around him. Understood, he says quietly, but the word carries none of the control it once did. Daniel studies him for a final moment, then speaks again, his tone unchanged but carrying a deeper weight. You will provide a full explanation of your actions within the hour, he says, and until that explanation is reviewed, your access will be suspended. The consequences are delivered without emphasis, without anger, but they land harder because of it, because there is no negotiation in them, no space left for interpretation. The room falls silent once more, but this time it is not filled with tension, it is filled with resolution, the kind that marks the end of one move and the beginning of another. And as Daniel turns toward the door, his presence already shifting beyond this moment, beyond this room, Sophia realizes that everything has changed again, but this time, the change is no longer working against her, it is standing beside her. And for the first time since this began, she is no longer being pulled through the story, she is standing inside it, fully seen, fully protected, and no longer alone. The door closes softly behind Daniel, leaving the office quiet once again, but this time the silence feels different, no longer suffocating, no longer filled with uncertainty, but grounded, resolved, as if something that had been unraveling has finally been pulled back into place. And Sophia stands there for a moment, letting it settle, letting herself breathe in a way she has not been able to since the night before. Mark Reynolds says nothing more, his presence diminished, his authority stripped away not by force but by truth. And as he turns away to gather his things, there is no confrontation left, no argument. Only the quiet consequence of actions that can no longer be hidden. Sophia steps out of the office slowly, her movements calm, steady, and as she walks back into the service hallway, the world around her feels the same lights, the same carts, the same quiet rhythm of staff moving through their shifts, but she knows now that it is not the same at all, because she is not the same person who walked into this building the day before. Hours pass, and by the time the afternoon light begins to soften over the ocean, the entire internal structure of the resort has shifted quietly but completely. Access logs reviewed, reports corrected, authority realigned, and somewhere within that system, the truth has settled into place, clear and undeniable. Sophia is called into a different office, not hidden in a hallway, but open, glass-lined, overlooking the water, and when she steps inside, Daniel is already there, standing near the window, the sunlight catching against the calm surface of the ocean behind him. For a moment, neither of them speaks, the silence between them no longer tense, but reflective, carrying the weight of everything that has passed between them in less than a single day. It is over, he says finally, his voice steady but softer than before. The investigation is complete. Your record has been cleared completely, There will be no mention of any violation. Sophia nods slowly, the words sinking in, not dramatic, not overwhelming, but grounding. Real thank you, she says quietly. The gratitude simple but genuine, because she understands what could have happened, how easily things could have gone in a different direction. Daniel studies her for a moment, then speaks again. You were placed in a situation that was never yours to carry. He says that will not happen again. His words are not just reassurance. They are a decision, the same kind of decision that reshaped everything before, but this time, it carries something more personal beneath it. Sophia hesitates, then asks the question that has been sitting quietly in her mind since the night before. What happens to me now? She says, her voice calm but uncertain, because for the first time, the future feels open in a way she is not used to. Daniel takes a slow breath, then steps slightly closer, not imposing, but present. You have two options, he says. You can return to your position exactly as it was, and continue as if none of this ever happened, or he pauses briefly, choosing his words with care. You can step into something different, a position within my direct operations team, training, better hours, better pay, a role where you are not invisible. Sophia looks at him, the offer settling in slowly, not just as opportunity, but as recognition, something she has never been given before. And for a moment, she does not answer, because this is not just a choice about work, it is a choice about who she becomes after everything that has happened. Why me? She asks quietly. Daniel meets her gaze without hesitation. Because you did not break, he replies. Because when you were pushed, you chose truth over fear, and because I trust what I saw in you. The words are simple, but they carry weight, real and undeniable. And Sophia feels something shift inside her again. Not fear, not uncertainty, but something stronger, something steady. She exhales slowly, then nods. I do not want to go back to being invisible, she says, her voice clear now, certain. Daniel allows a faint, genuine smile to appear for the first time. Then you will not, he replies. The moment settles between them, quiet but full, the kind that marks not just an ending, but a beginning. And as the sun lowers over the ocean outside, casting warm light across the room, Sophia realizes that what started as a mistake, a wrong door, a wrong room, has led her somewhere she never could have planned, not just into a different world, but into a different version of her own life. And for the first time, that future does not feel like something she has to survive. It feels like something she is ready to step into.